Hey, what's up, guys? It's the Fantasy Files podcast. It's your co-hosts, Brandon Deutsch and Grant Mona here. So happy to be here. We want to thank our sponsor, Athletic Gains and Puma, world's leader in sports performance. So thankful for our sponsors. Talk of shame, don't need to do. We were pretty correct last week, especially on the guys we talked about. Marvin Bagley didn't have a great week until one good game toward the end of the week. Guys like that. We're right about pretty much everybody. So it was a good week for basketball. I know in football we did the talk of shame, but for our basketball diehard fans here, we've been consistent. We're going to win you fantasy leagues. I guarantee it. You keep listening. We know our stuff. All right. So let me put on the timer. We don't have a guest today. We're going to do the 15 minutes, knock it out, winners, losers. So let's do it right now. Let's talk about Dennis Smith Jr., and he's been fantastic with Damian Lillard out to abdominal strain. And he has just been, look at this, 27 fantasy points 2 games ago, 16 in 37 minutes. He's averaging 36 minutes a game with Damian Lillard out. He's absolutely balling. It's him and Jusuf Nurkic and Norman Powell right now. I think he's the sure thing winner this week, as crazy as it sounds, because I think Damian Lillard's going to miss from Friday to Friday till the end of next week. I think he's going to be out. I haven't heard any news about him coming back anytime soon. I know it's probably a week-to-week thing, day-to-day thing, but I'm going to say even when Lillard does come back, I think Dennis Smith has done enough to get minutes and produce in those limited minutes. So I'm all in on him this week. I think he's a winner. Barely, though, because he's still Dennis Smith Jr. You know, it's hard for him in his growth to be consistent since he hasn't gotten the minutes in his career. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean that's a fair assessment. Just recent news actually. The day we're making this, Damian Lillard got a cortisone shot, and it doesn't say he's going to play immediately, but they say he might play like at the beginning of next week. And I don't know, if that'll make a difference, because Dennis Smith has kind of solidified himself as like a pretty solid guy in the rotation, and the Blazers can get all the help they need right now. I mean, they need a lot of help. Their depth has really suffered. And like you said, with Lillard absent, he's been pretty good. I mean, against Boston, he had 21. Against the Clippers, he had 13. And he looked really good. I mean, he's thriving in his role, and I think that's what they need right now. And even when Lillard returns, I think that he's going to probably be even better than he was, before Lillard got hurt, just because of the confidence he has now. So I'm in on him. Especially with Lillard out for this next week or so. Like you said, I'm in on him just because of his recent production. So
yeah, next guy I want to go to is Monte Morris. And this is a guy who's gotten increased minutes along with Will Barton, who we talked about a couple of weeks ago, increased production. Aaron Gordon's also having a huge year. Aaron Gordon, I know we haven't really been talking about him because he's a must own and a must start. And it's crazy. And we'll get to Aaron Gordon next. I just thought about it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we didn't talk about Aaron Gordon. But Monte Morris is a guy that's been averaging 12 fantasy points on the year, but in the last month this season, he's been averaging around 15, 16 fantasy points. So this is a consistent winner over the past month. However, we have to understand, even with Michael Porter Jr. out for the whole year, Monte Morris still has Will Barton, he still has Aaron Gordon, he still has Nikola Jokic, he has Campazzo, he has all these guys that can come in, Green, he has all these guys that come in and can be the second guy to Jokic, while Murray and Porter Jr. are out. It's not just him. It's been Will Barton. It's probably going to continue to be Will Barton, but it's good knowing that Monte Morris is going to get the minutes, averaging around 28 minutes a game, 29 minutes a game. That's very promising. And the production, he's not hell bent on scoring. So that limits what he's going to do. Who's getting all the assists? Nikola Jokic is getting all the assists. So
Jokic is getting all the assists.
It's like, exactly. Jokic is getting all the assists. Yeah. So Morris's fantasy upside is limited to his scoring, which he's just not consistent with. And even though he's getting the minutes, even though he's a guy that is a popular pickup on waivers, he's available in 78 to 80% of leagues. I think you leave him on the waivers. I don't think he is consistent enough with his scoring to be able to produce for your team long term. We talked about 2 weeks ago a guy like Willie Hernan Gomez, who I loved, who I called a winner, who is a winner, back-to-back 25 fantasy points this week.
Yeah.
Long term, Hernan Gomez is not a guy you want because Zion Williamson's going to come back eventually. And then you just have Jonas and Zion Williamson. And he's going to be completely out of the rotation.
He though?
Hernan Gomez. He's been balling. You know what I mean? Like 8 to 10 minutes a game, maybe 12. Like, let's be real.
I'm talking about Zion. Is he though? Is Zion coming back?
I thought you were saying Hernan Gomez. Is he?
Oh,
obviously needs to lose a little weight.
So. Doesn't look like it.
He's going to get. Thing is, I don't understand because he's going to get hurt if he comes back weighing that much. I mean, we've both played basketball. That's why they're keeping him out. Understand,
still.
Dude, when I played basketball in high school, I was 6'6", 185 pounds. I'm 220 now, 215, 220. I was 100, not even 185. I was like 170, 175 pounds. That's how I was able to move quick. I would have gone in there at let's say 280 pounds, but he's like he's the same height as me. He's 350 pounds. And obviously I never had that athleticism. Obviously no one does, but 300, that's a lot of weight. I don't care how athletic you are. He could have Russell Westbrook's athleticism, which, people argue he does. He's going to get hurt. That's a lot on the knees and a lot on the ankles and a lot on
already had a knee injury.
So, and he had a setback. I know, but I'm just saying, let's assume he's going to lose what he needs to lose in the next couple weeks and come back slowly. And, he's implementing the offense. This is a guy who's averaging 28 points per game on 50 to 60% from the floor last season. I mean, this is an NBA superstar when he's on the floor. So that's why Hernan Gomez, I know we took a little bit of a detour, but I'm out on Monte Morris, in on Aaron Gordon, who's available in still 65% of leagues. Pick him up. He's been pencil in 16-plus fantasy points the whole season. I picked him up early on waivers. This is a guy who's become one of the best defenders in the league. Perimeter. He used to be mostly just an interior defender. He's become one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. He's averaging 2 steals a game. Sometimes he'll get you 2 blocks, 2 steals. He's never going to do he's kind of like a Caruso type player. He's never going to get 40 points unless Jokic is sitting, right? But he's going to do enough to get you 15 plus fantasy points every game. So I'm in on Gordon, out on Morris. So sorry, we had that whole banter on Zion. So what are your thoughts on these Nuggets players?
I'm out on Morris just because it's so unfortunate because I thought he would have kind of a breakout year with Murray down, but I mean, he hasn't really shown that he can do consistently good things besides scoring, and even his scoring hasn't been amazing. He had 6 points in one game, he had 9 in another, and then he's not, like you said, Jokic is basically the point guard, so he's not going to get a lot of assists, he's not going to get a lot of rebounds, and he's not a very good defender, so his points is what he's predicated on, and he's not doing that very consistently. So, I'm out on him. Aaron Gordon is basically their second best player, right? I mean, he's been amazing for them. He was amazing for them even when Jamal Murray went down last year. He was very good. I think they were 9-1 at one point when they got him, going into the playoffs, and he would, obviously they didn't have enough because they needed another superstar. But Aaron Gordon has continued that into this year. He's been awesome for them. And in terms of Hernan Gomez, I know we mentioned how good he was, a couple weeks ago or whatever it was, but like you said, short term, I don't know. He's kind of regressed to the mean. He had a couple good weeks, but he's kind of taken a dive a little bit. And like you said, Zion's probably coming back pretty soon. I'm not going to say very soon, but soon enough to where you're not going to have this guy long term. So I'm going to agree with you in all 3 of your picks.
This is Hernan Gomez. Yeah, I mean, like we talked about. Next guy I want to talk about is Ayodan Tsunumu, the kid from Chicago, playing for the Chicago Bulls, getting increased minutes. I know he got that start the other day in DeRozan's, when DeRozan was out due to COVID, and he balled out. I mean, this is a guy who was always, just a dog at Illinois. He was getting steals. He was scoring. He can score at will. He can get steals. He has grit. That's what I like about the Bulls. Every player on their team has grit. They're just a hard-nosed team. That's hence Lonzo Ball. It's exactly, and Alex Caruso, right? And this guy, Tsunumu, who's been balling. 13, 7, and 6, 13, 2, and 2, whatever. I don't think he's as consistent because of the depth on his team, even with DeRozan in or out. Doesn't matter. The depth on his team. I'm out on Ayodan Tsunumu. As good as he is, remember he's a rookie. It's going to take time. He's a really good NBA player. I think he's proven that. I think he's going to have a nice career in the NBA. But for fantasy purposes, there's too much depth on the team. I mean, you've seen Vucevic even, who was a sure thing first-round pick the last couple of years, lose some production this year due to Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan coming out of nowhere to become an MVP-type candidate. Because we always knew DeRozan was really good, but we didn't know he was 28 points per game good still, you know? So I'm out on Ayodan Tsunumu. What are your thoughts, Grant?
Yeah, I agree. Just because, look, he's a solid role player, and I think that's what he is. He's a role player for the Bulls, and I think he got his first start. I could be mistaken, a couple days ago, but yeah, I just don't think his. I mean, he's a guy that fills a role for them. He's not a guy that's going to put up fantasy numbers for you. He's a good, I don't know. I mentioned a couple players a few weeks back to where they're great on their like Sengun. Like Sengun actually has become a pretty good fantasy player, but a guy like that where he knows what his job is and he does it, but he's not a good fantasy player, and that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about fantasy, right? So, he's a sleeper for me. I'm not in on him this week just because. And look, he's a great kid, good player. He's actually surprised me a lot, but he's not a good fantasy pick. Great player for the Bulls. I love the Bulls, but not in fantasy, man.
Yeah, it's like a team. What is it indicative of? Like Lakers players, maybe. Like if you go down the roster, I don't know how you can trust Horton Tucker anymore, just because of the production from Westbrook, Davis, even Monk. Monk's been very, very consistent producer.
Monk's been.
They got so much depth for that team. So I mean, it's like that. You know, he's great, but he plays on a stacked team, right? So let's go into a guy that has been just amazing his whole career, especially in fantasy. He's one of the guys that for many years has been, oh my gosh, that Clint Capella, Jonas Valanciunas, Jared Allen type guy, to a discount level, but still very good, as Steven Adams. And we shouldn't even be bringing him up because he's 17 points per game in fantasy. But this is why we're bringing him up. You guys are playing with some fools this year. He's available in 60% of leagues. 60% of ESPN fantasy basketball leagues. Are 60. You joking? Are you joking? He's basically doing, to a lesser extent, he's doing Valanciunas' work this year for the Grizzlies. He's not as good as Valanciunas, but he's going to get those boards. He's going to get some points, especially with John Morant. In or out, doesn't matter. He still gets pencil in 15-plus fantasy points every game. I mean, he had 33 fantasy points.
And steals. I'm kind of surprised to see steals up there.
Well, he's a very smart basketball player. If you ever hear him in a conversation talk, with his accent, I mean, He looks like he could beat the crap out of anybody that's ever. He's honestly a really nice guy, it seems like, and he knows the game left and right. One of the best pick and roll players of the last 5 years. He's been great with that for what he's done. He's used every single bit of what God's given him, or what people want to say is talent. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's used every bit. There's no better he could be, and he could be a lot worse. So he's also, he's 7 feet tall, but you know what I'm saying. He's mastered the pick and roll game. He's going to get rebounds. He's going to get blocks. Like you said, steals. I mean, this is a sure thing winner. You guys have to pick up Steven Adams. If you pick up Steven Adams, he might save your fantasy season. Absolute winner the rest of the year.
Yeah, I don't know why he's still available in 60% of leagues. We mentioned everything before, double-doubles. He hasn't been very consistent with the double-doubles, but he's going to put together a very good stat line to where it's going to be like high single numbers with maybe 2 or 3 assists, a block, and a couple steals, that's a complete stat line for a guy that's just sitting probably in the waivers for a lot of you guys. So yeah, he's a win. I don't know. I don't really understand that one. He's a big that can slot in anywhere, really. So, yeah,
your mind will be boggled by this.
Maybe I should pick him up. Somebody probably has him. I don't know.
No, I picked him up last week.
Of course, it's you.
I got Ja. Ja was hurt. He's still hurt.
Yeah, you kind of needed
partly. Zion, Klay Thompson, Ben Simmons. Oh gosh, let's not get started on Ben Simmons.
Man, that team.
I'll lose all my validity. No one will listen to me. You know what? I play the long game, though. I do think at some point Simmons will get traded or will play, and that it will help me in the fantasy playoffs. My record is
Yeah.
suffering because I have a 500 record right now because I have Zion, I have Simmons, I have Clay, John Morant. So, but I know in the long game, if I squeeze, I'm like the Lakers. They compare my team to the Lakers. Squeeze into the playoffs, I have the players to do a lot of damage. I'm going to say you're going to be mind-boggled here. Danilo, it's Danilo, right? Gallinari.
Danilo Gallinari.
Danilo Gallinari, yes.
Yeah.
That's a nice Godfather accent right there. One of the best ones of all time. We don't need to plug the Godfather. Everyone knows the Godfather. But Gallinari, look at this: 11 fantasy points on the year, and this is because he was hurt and he was out, and he's coming back into the rotation. Kevin Huerter is getting affected by it, who was a previous winner, who I was wrong and then right on. He was right when I said he was going to be a winner. It took him another week, but Cam Reddish, all these guys are on that team. Gallinari, you want to hear his statistics? This is gonna boggle your mind right here. 26 fantasy points, 20 fantasy points, 23 fantasy points his last 3 games. All with 25 plus minutes.
What?
And guess what? He's available in 95% of
he's
fantasy
not.
basketball leagues.
Holy.
He's available in 95% of fantasy basketball leagues. And again, I don't know if people forgot what this guy can do. He's been a really good NBA player for like 10 years.
I understand.
But Grant, if you need a guy to pick up, that's the guy. Pick him up right now. Because I was going to pick him up.
Too many players. I don't need to pick anybody up.
Yeah, you have a problem with you have too much depth. I'm the opposite. I'm superstar heavy. Like I need depth. The Lakers at least have depth. My team does not have depth. It's like Luka Doncic, John Morant, Zion Williamson, Klay Thompson, Bradley Beal, Paul George, and Bradley Beal.
Oh my God, you have an All NBA hurt team. That's insane.
Yeah, All NBA hurt team and underperforming team. That's what they should be called. No, but going back to it, 95% of leagues. Last 3 games, he's averaging, last 7 days, you could say a week, he would have averaged 24.6 fantasy points per game if we were talking about him last week. That's like 11.6 more on average to be a winner. 24.6 fantasy points. I mean, this is a lock-in winner.
Holy.
Again, this team has a lot of depth. This is something to look at long-term. This team has a ton of good players, the Hawks. So, but right now, you can't say he's not a winner the way he's playing. I mean, he can hit the 3. He can rebound. I mean, this is a sure thing winner available in 95% of leagues. Pick him up. Might save your fantasy season.
Yeah, and he's an amazing free throw shooter. Amazing free throw shooter as well. So he can get to the line. I'm looking down his game log and it's like 100, 100, 100, 100. It's just a whole bunch of hundreds for his free throws. Shooting the ball really, really well. I think he's gotten his groove back in December. He went 18, 17, and then 20. So he's kind of back, I guess. He's always been a formidable offensive talent. I should know he was on the Clippers for 2 years. I loved him to death. He's just a pure scorer, man. Even at his age right now, he's been in the league for a long time, but he's still a pure scorer. If you need a pure scorer, man, if you need a guy who can just put up points, I don't know why that shocked me. Why is he still available in that many? I guess because he was hurt, but
yeah.
Now it's going to go down. I think that's going to go down.
Yeah, that's the timer, but we need a couple more guys because we went on a couple banters. So I wanted to go to the most consistent. So we'll go time it over. Most consistent, one of the most consistent fantasy players all year, 26 minutes per game, averaging about 2.4 assists, 4.3 rebounds, 1.3 steals, 0.5 blocks, like about 10 points a game. And this is a guy who suffers from depth, like Tsunumu, Cody Martin, small forward on the Hornets. He has amassed 324 fantasy points on the year, which is means he hasn't missed one game. He's played 26 minutes he hasn't missed one game every single game this year, and he's averaged 13 and a half. So it'd be dumb.
How many fantasy leagues is he available in?
How many fantasy leagues?
Do we know that number?
Because he's on the waiver in most.
He's
available in 93% of fantasy leagues. So he's available in most. And this is a guy, look at his last 3 games. I mean, yes, he suffers from depth. Like the roster has depth, right? LaMelo Ball, Kelly Oubre, PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, like you name it, Terry Rozier. But 20 fantasy points, 12 fantasy points, 26 fantasy points. And this is hilarious. 41 minutes the last couple games too, with LaMelo Ball out. 42 minutes and 41 minutes. I mean, look, people are going to just be like, oh man, this guy, well, he's not that good of an NBA player. It doesn't matter. We're talking fantasy. We're not talking I wouldn't have this guy in an NBA roster. That doesn't matter. I'm not the GM. This is fantasy. Like, he's a great fantasy player. He's been super
need a guy
consistent.
that's going to put up points. I don't care how he looks in the team.
Exactly. So I'm in on him. It'd be foolish of us to not say he's a winner based on the whole year playing every game. He's averaged 13.5 fantasy points. And without LaMelo Ball, this is like, we're going to start doing winner plus. This is like an extra winner. 17 plus points per game or something like that. Yeah. I don't know if he's winner plus, but he's close to winner plus. That's for sure.
I agree.
Steven Adams.
Yeah, definitely. Look, yeah. Cody Martin's he's shooting 53% from the field and 63% from 3. That's insanity. That's really good. That's definite winner.
Yeah,
that's a winner plus.
Him and his brother are both really good NBA players. Yeah. I know we've gone above the timer. So I wanted to finish on a guy that has been in the rotation, but again, another guy who suffers from depth. And this is Cameron Payne on the Phoenix Suns. Very good three-point shooter, very good defender. He didn't used to be that great of a defender. Hard-nosed, gritty. I mean, his face pisses me off half the time when the Lakers are playing him. I don't, he's like a Patrick Beverley type guy. Like, everybody hates that guy on the other team because he's so like gritty, and he makes these faces when he makes a three, and he's an underdog. He wasn't drafted high.
He killed the Clippers.
Yeah.
He killed the Clippers.
Yeah, he kills the Lakers too. You see that playoff series against the Lakers last year? Jesus Christ, he killed the Lakers. He made like 100 threes against them. But yeah, I mean, this is a guy that was an underdog, wasn't drafted too high, made a name for himself. It seems like a lot of the Suns players are like that. Like, they weren't supposed to be like amazing. Besides Booker, Paul, and Ayton, these are guys that are like, Cam Johnson wasn't even, he's turned into he was drafted fairly high. So was Mikal Bridges, but these are guys that are so good. But fantasy wise, it's hard for me to trust a guy on the Suns that's not Mikal Bridges because of the steals, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker. I'm completely out on everybody else, and that includes Cam Payne, who's a very good NBA player. He's averaging 28 minutes a game. He's the sixth man pretty much. I mean, he comes in with McGee. He still has Cam Johnson on the floor. Mikal Bridges usually stays on. Maybe DeAndre Ayton. He's been great, but fantasy-wise, leave him on the waivers.
Yeah, I agree. He turns the ball over a couple times a game, which is something. I mean, he's high as 4 in the past 10 games, which isn't very good, too. So that'll get you some negative points. He's not a good defender either, so he's not going to get you steals or blocks really in bundles. His 3-point shot is 40.5% in his last 10 games, which is okay, but it's not as good as he was last year. He's shooting at a 38.4 clip, which is okay. It's not that good for a guy whose main thing is scoring. So, you look at the percentages and you're like, well, it's not looking good. And then you look at his stat line, it's like, 7, 6, and 2. That's actually not terrible for a guy coming off the bench, but he's great for the Suns. He's another one of these guys where he's good for the Suns, but he's not good for your fantasy team. Not yet. I mean, look, I'm not going to put bad juju on anybody, but if Chris Paul gets hurt or if Chris Paul rests a few times, yeah, sure, certain, because he's going to put up numbers like he did against the Clippers in the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals, and he's going to put up numbers like he did against the Lakers in the playoffs. So, yeah, but for now, no. I mean, he's a great role player in his role, but fantasy, no. I'm out on him.
With you completely. 2 more guys. No, we were going a little overtime. Real quick, let's rapid fire these guys. Gary Payton II and Marcus Morris for the Clippers. So
Marcus Morris, yes. Marcus Morris is on. Somebody doused him with gasoline, right? And he's just been on fire. I needed to put in a loser. I don't know what happened.
Okay, I needed to put in a loser to talk about Marcus Morris, who's a winner, because we were talking about too many winners today. Need to keep
Gary Payton.
It's like have you ever watched the singing shows? Have you ever seen the singing shows like The Voice, where they like are auditioning and they have or American Idol, where they have 6 that'll get on? You need a couple that are just terrible, not terrible, but that aren't going to make it. That's basically
yes,
right here. So Gary Payton II, he's great. suffers from depth. Like the guy, same story, suffers from depth, great defender, very athletic, owned in only 3% of leagues. So he's great in deep leagues to stash on the bench because he does have upside. He's become a very, very good player for the Warriors. Again, Klay Thompson is going to come back within a couple weeks. That could hurt his minutes. We don't know about that. Kuminga and Wiseman. Wiseman's going to come back, and Kuminga's been playing a little more minutes. Like he's been good in limited minutes. So, I mean, I'd stay away from him personally. I think Gary Payton II is a loser. And drum roll for Marcus Morris, the man himself. Look at these recent games. 16 fantasy points, 25 fantasy points against Sacramento, 18 against the Lakers. And then, he had 2 before that. But that was in less minutes. He's been getting 31-plus minutes the last 4 games. He's been averaging over 18 fantasy points in that time frame the last 4 games. He's been otherworldly recently. And he wasn't like that before. He was very inconsistent to start the year with Batum going off. But with Batum out, he's really kind of turned into a type of player that's going to be 3-and-D. And he's done really well. I think it would be foolish to not call him a winner this upcoming week, especially with Paul George struggling, Reggie Jackson struggling, both with consistency. I mean, Marcus Morris is a winner for sure, in my mind.
Yeah, he's been elite.
And think about this. This. Owned in only 11% of leagues. 89% of leagues he's available.
Oh, my God.
So you could pick him up, and you'll be fine. For deep leagues, this is the perfect guy. He's getting the minutes. Again, we talk about minutes, like Xavier said last week, minutes in production. He has both. So this is a guy, even in a 10-man league, 8-man league, you could pick him up. He's been just brilliant. So he's a winner for me.
Yeah, he's a winner for me too. I think obviously everyone gets right against the Lakers, but that Laker game kind of sparked his hot streak. I mean, he went 21 on 66% shooting, then went 21 again with 8 rebounds. And then after that, he went 17, 2, 4, and 2 with 2 steals. Like, he's been unbelievable. He got a lot of rest. He was out for a very long time, reconditioning himself. He had a knee injury, over the offseason, kind of rehabbed that into the season, and now he's kind of fully healthy. He's looking amazing. He's looking like he was in the playoffs last year, that when he kind of carried them, after Kawhi got hurt, he scored 18 to 20 a game in the playoffs. So, he's been awesome. He's been really good. So he's a win for me.
And that's our show today. It's your co-hosts, Brandon Deutsch, Grant Mona. There's some great players. I think this was the best podcast yet. Content, analytic-wise, talk-wise, banter, perfect amount of banter, like some funny things. It's like the football one yesterday where I talked about Dan Campbell being a transitional relationship type guy. Well, that'll be on TikTok. Look it up. Follow us on TikTok. Fantasy Files Pod on TikTok, growing our brand. We're it's too good of content to only be getting 300, 400, 500 views. We're incrementally growing, but it should be in the thousands. This is great content. Okay, get us up. Go follow us there. Get it. If you don't have TikTok, download it. Follow us there. Follow us on Instagram, Fantasy Files Pod. All right, post it up. All the guys, NBA, Spotify. NFL. They be looking at our stories. We got sponsors now, so this isn't just a sham. This isn't a sham. We're consistent. We're coming. We're legit. We know our stuff. So we expect the loyalty. We love our fans. We love our listeners. So
not one.
Tell your friends about us.
Not 4. Not 5.
Not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7. Exactly. That's one of the best lines ever. Oh, that made everybody hate LeBron. Jeez. Everyone in the world hated LeBron until he came back to Cleveland.
Well, we want you. No, we want you to like us. I promise. That was a good thing. I don't want
like us. We're good people. We would appreciate more listens. You tell everyone, like your friends, about us. Everybody, we got you. Thank you again to our sponsor, Athletic Gains, Puma, world's leader in sports performance. So appreciative of them. It's your co-host, Brandon Deutsch, Graham Mona. Thank you.